Hello, welcome friends. I'm so glad that you're here. This is my second Michael's class. My name is Elizabeth. I live in Charlotte, North Carolina, and I am a teacher. So I may even have some students on here, and you may know me by Mrs. Barrett. So welcome, welcome. I'm super excited about getting started. As you heard or read, this segment will be on YouTube in about 24 hours. So if there's something that you missed, you can always wait and go back tomorrow and finish your project. We have all age groups, I believe, in this class, and I'm going to have you put that in the Q&A. If you would not mind, please let me know what grade you just completed so I can give you the best class possible. And we want to hear also and see your finished product. So if you could, I'm going to ask Chanel to come down here. And if you could please, at Learn with Michaels, follow Learn with Michaels on Instagram, and me at La Cozy Casita. We would just love to see your finished products. And then you can hashtag Make It with Michaels and hashtag Kid Classes. Okay, and then your adult can take this picture for you to look later, and I'll show you this at the end of class as well. So I wanted to show you what we're going to be making. We're going to be making two backpack pulls, two pony bead backpack pulls. Let me move this just a little bit. This one is an ice cream cone. And this one is a cupcake. So you can put this on your backpacks, or you can take this to camp, or just actually put your keys on it, whatever you like. I'm super excited about it. Some of my kindergarten students like to make a little collection. And so they have all kinds of backpack pulls on their backpacks. So maybe you'll do that too. So be thinking what you have in mind for your creations. And then don't forget to write in the Q&A which grade you just completed.
We do have a couple people who said what grade they just completed. We have a few people just completed first grade. We have a kindergartner, a couple fifth grades just completed fifth grade, sixth grade, second, fourth. So it seems like from kindergarten to sixth grade is what we're looking at.
Wonderful. Well, welcome, welcome. I'm so excited that you are here and you are with us. And for my kindergartners and my first graders, this can be challenging at some point, but we're going to work through it together. I'm going to teach you lots of little ways that you can work through this project. You might have to have an adult helper when we put on our key rings, because that might be a little tricky for your little hands. And so I always kind of say, if you can tie your shoes, you'll be able to probably do most of this on your own. If you can't tie your shoes yet, then you might need to ask your adult to help you every once in a while, and that's totally fine too. Okay. I don't remember if I mentioned, but I am a kindergarten teacher, so I can give directions very clearly. But if I don't, please let me know in the Q&A and I can re-explain something for you. Okay. So you may have this kit, and if you do, go ahead and start opening it. There is tape. There was a lid that came on top of it. So there's tape around the sides. So carefully remove the tape with some scissors. And I'm going to go through the supply list. If you did not have a chance to pick up this kit and you just have pony beads laying around, you can use these too, just as well. Okay, and some string. So you'll see that this kit comes with the different compartments, which will give you all the materials you need for the various pony bead creations. You can see them up here. Okay, so we have some for a happy face, this one with the pink and the yellow and the red, that is for our ice cream cone, and that's the one we're going to be doing first. Then you'll see kind of like this confetti looking one, And this one is for our cupcake. And this is what we'll be doing secondly. Then you will see this one is for a daisy. And then all of these clear beads, it's for a rainbow. This one's really cool. We're not going to be doing this one in class, but I think it's pretty cool. And this guy up here, he is for a happy face that I will be teaching a class in a few weeks on. We'll be complete using this part. All right. And then you'll see that we have hooks and key rings. And then we had different strings, which I took mine out already. And then you can release your string. Be very careful not to knot it up. So carefully take out your string. And you'll need your, I'm just going to leave that up here. I'm not going to put that away because we need that. Okay, so we are going to start. Oh, and we have our instruction manual. So like I said, we're just going to be working on these two guys today. But in this booklet, you have all the instructions to complete the other projects. So this is kind of your, these are your patterns, and it tells you how many beads to use for each row. Okay. So then we have, this was not part of the kit, but it did come in the other supplies to bring to class, and they are straws. If you don't have straws, it's okay, but straws are going to give you a more sturdy looking finished product. So you can see I made this one yesterday. So you can, I'm going to show you the difference here. So this one does not have straws in it. This one is just as cute, and it's just using the string. And then this one, there's straws in there. So can you tell how it's a little sturdier? Can you tell that? So both will turn out wonderfully. Okay, so if you don't have straws, don't worry. But if you do have straws, that's what we're going to be using here. And again, it's fine if you don't. Okay. All righty. The other thing you're going to need is a little bit of glue for finishing, because we are going to put a dab of glue on the ends so they do not unravel. And you can use regular Elmer's glue if you do not have the glitter and sequin glue. That's one that I tend to use a lot. And then scissors. Okay. All right. I think we are ready to get started on our first creation. So let me stick this guy over here. We get set up, and I hope you're set up too. Okay, so I'm going to use my pink string, and I'm gently going to unravel it because I don't want it to get knotted up. And this might seem to you like it's an extra long string, and it is, because we wouldn't want to get to this part of our project and realize we'd run out of string, right? So it's always better to start with a long piece than too short a piece, because then you have to start all over. Okay, so we're going to start here. Once you have your string all unraveled, then you are in a good place. Just going to kind of set it aside here. And we're going to prepare our hook and our keychain. Okay, this is the part for my younger crafters who might not have their muscles strong in their hands quite yet, that you might need a little bit of help. Okay, so what you're going to do, and I'm going to zoom in a little bit so you can see what we're going to do first. So you are going to use your fingernail to separate the key ring. Do you see how I did that? All you have to do is push your fingernail in between the key ring where the two parts meet. Okay. And you're just going to separate it a little bit. Once you put your fingernail in there, your finger, you'll be able to see that pretty easily. Okay. And that's when you're going to lift it just enough to fit your hook in, okay? Just like this. Again, if you need help, you can ask your adult to help you. And then we're just going to string this all the way through. So I'm just pulling it towards me. So you see here, I started right at the beginning. And now I'm going to move the ring towards me. And some of you, this is like easy peasy lemon squeezy because you've done this lots of times before. And some of us, this is our very first time. There we go. Now we have it. Okay. So I'll show you one more time and then we'll move on. Separate with your fingernail here. Right at the beginning. You don't want to start in the middle. That'll be really hard because it's, if you notice, it's still tight on this side and it's separated here. You want to separate right here where it looks different. You see that? It's the same, and different right here. Okay, you're separating right there towards the end and you're putting in your key ring or your hook. There we go. Okay. The next step is we are going to do that again, but this time we're doing it with to put our cherry on top. So I'm going to show you. So here's our ring. Here's our hook. And we need our cherry on top. Okay, so you're going to grab your red pony bead and we're going to string this on. Guys, this is the trickiest part of the whole project, okay? So don't worry. Once you get this, you are going to be pros, I tell you. All right, here we go. Separate towards the end where the ring changes, not in the middle, right here where the ring changes. Separate with your nail and put that cherry on top. So this one's thicker than the hook, but with just a little wiggling, you'll get that on, okay? And then move the ring towards you and voila, there we have it. You did it. All right. So I hope we're ready to move on. And while I'm waiting for you to go ahead and do that, I'm going to just take out my little pinks. You don't have to do that. I just like to do it. So I'm going to take out my pink beads. I'm going to move up. And then if you have any questions, please put them in the Q&A. You don't have to sort this out. I'm just kind of buying a little bit of time so that we can all make sure that we are ready to go. Okay. And again, we won't wait too long just because there might be friends who are just ready and they're just kind of waiting for us patiently. But for our new friends, I just wanted to give them a chance. Okay. So my friends who are waiting, you could do this too if you wanted. You could just sort these. But they are already sorted for you in a way. I just think they're easier to grab this way. And they'll give you some extras here, which is nice. So if you lose some, you'll have a couple extras here. Okay. So now it's time to move on. And I'm going to show you, I'm only showing you the instructions because when we're not together and doing this class, I want you to know how to find the patterns. Okay. So here it showed us what we're making. Here it has our supplies. These are the cord lengths. So if you did not buy this kit, it's going to show you how long to make your cord. So if you just have string, you're going to make your ice cream 5.2 feet, it says 5.2 feet. So if you don't know what 5.2 feet is, but you do have a ruler or some type of measuring, you're just going to, like I do here, you're just going to start here at 0, go to 12, that's 1. That's 1 foot. And then you're just going to keep going. 2, 3, 4, 5, and it says 5.2, but it doesn't have to be perfect. You could see that they gave us extra too. Okay. But those are for our friends who don't have the kit. If you do have the kit, you are all set. You've got your string ready to go. Okay. Then you're going to move over and we are going to find pattern 2. That's our ice cream. Let me get us centered back again. Our ice cream cone. All right, so let's move to our straw.
Elizabeth, I have a quick question for you.
Yes.
For our friends who are not using the kit, what if they don't have a keychain or the ring?
Well, if you don't have a keychain or a ring, you're just going to start just like this. This one does not have a keychain or a ring, and you can add your ring and keychain at another date. Okay. You would just make sure that you were being extra careful with the string, but there's plenty of room here to add that on later. Do you see this? See, I can just add that right on. Okay. That's a very good question. So you're just going to do the same thing. Okay. Just add it later. How's that sound? Okay. Our next step, if you have your straws, you're going to get your straws and your scissors. Unwrap your straw. These are just regular straws. If you have bendy straws, that's fine too. And I wouldn't use coffee stirrers if you're using those really, really tiny, skinny straws. But these are just regular straws. Okay. You're going to put your scissors inside the straw. Isn't that crazy? And what we're going to do is we're going to cut all along the straw in one straight line. Okay. So open, close, open, close. This is just like the wackiest hack, but it's going to work really well and it's going to help us to string better. And it's going to help us to get a very nice finished product. Okay, so look, you can't even tell that it's been cut, can you? That's it. And if your straw is not clear like mine, that's fine too. All right, so you've got your straw, you cut it down the middle. And now we are going to, we've got that prepped. We've got our beads prepped. Now we're ready to rock and roll. I hope you're ready to rock and roll with me. All right, here's our string. We are going to take our string and we're going to put it through that cherry.
I have another quick question for you.
Sure.
Did we cut the string at all, or are we using how it comes in the kit?
Just use it how it comes in the kit. Good question.
And how long is that for the people who are not using the kit?
Yep, that was, let's look back at 5.2 feet. And that is a little extra long, but like I said before, it is better to have it longer than shorter because you don't want to cut it too short and get down to the end. And you're thinking, oh no, now I have to start over. So it was 5.2 feet. Okay. All right. So let's go ahead and string into our cherry on top. Right there. I'm going to move this out of the way just so you can see what I'm doing here. Okay. So here's my cherry. I'm putting it at the top and I've only just begun to put the string through. Okay. I'm holding on to this key ring up here and I am pulling because I want my ends to match. And some of you might have to scooch back even. Okay. So now my ends match. If this is tricky for you. You can tape down this edge, this end, and that's totally fine too, if you want to. I do not do that, but you can if you want. That's an option. So you would just so it kind of stays in place, okay? So you hold on to your cherry and then you're just pulling until these ends are even. I just have it in the shot there so that you can see the ends, but it's going to seem like you're pulling and pulling and pulling. So you can't pull any longer. So now you have a right side and a left side. It's like you're going to be jumping rope here or something. It's so long. Okay. All right. You got your right and your left. It's right in the middle. And now we are going to start our first row. So it says we need 3 pink beads. So I've got my straw and I'm going to put on 3 beads. And if you don't do anything with the straw at all, it might feel like it's not going to fit. Okay. But what you do is you just kind of pinch your straw together, just a tiny, teeny bit. And then it'll push through. Once you get the first one on, you'll be able to get the others on. 1, 2, 3. Okay. And you're not stringing this all the way to the end or anything like that. Just right here to the edge, because that's all you need. You just need a little bit here. Okay. I like to put my finger on the end of the straw and then push those beads there. Do you see how I did that? So I've got my beads on, 1, 2, 3, put my finger right here on the edge and just push those beads to the edge. If I don't have my finger there to stop them, what's going to happen? They're going to roll right off, right? So got my 3. And then I'm going to snip the end here. Okay. Just get as close as you can to your beads here. So push, snip. And then just put them back like this. And now I have a sturdy set of beads. Okay. If you don't have the straws, you're just going to put them right on your right cord. So if you don't have the straws, and I'm only going to show you this right now, we won't have to do this every single time, but if you do not have the straw, you can put your 3 beads on the right side of your cord or left. It's not really going to matter too much. It's just if you do it to one side, you have to do it to the other. See how these are a little looser? You see that? But it's still totally fine. Okay. All right. So I'm stringing on my right. If you want to start with your left, you can. So I just have it just like this. And I'm going to take the end of my left cord now. This was my right. Now I'm going to take my left. If you started with your left, then now you go to your right. It's okay. As long as you do put one side in, you're going to do the same for the next side. Okay. I started with my right because I'm a righty and I just go for the right. But if you put your left in first, all you have to do is put your other side in. So look at that. I just put in the left side. That sounds so wild, doesn't it? So here's my right side. You're going to put your left side in now. Not all the way, just a little, just like that. And if part of your other cord came out, don't worry, just put it back in. No big deal. All right. Now, I'm going to pull out so you can see. Now, I do want to show you something because right now it's a little tricky with our cord being so long, but just make sure it's just like, you don't have any like ties in it like that. Just kind of lay it flat. Okay. Now I've got my 2 ends and I'm going to pull. Now, if I pull, then my beads are going to go up and that will still work. It's just this way is just going to be a little less aggressive. So just pull, stop, pull, stop. Make sure this guy, if you need to adjust him and put him back towards the middle, but it's best to just kind of If you're pulling one side, you need to make sure that you're pulling the other side so that it's even Steven. Okay. So here we go. Pull, pull, pull. Make sure you can see it all now that we're to the top. Pull, pull, pull. Okay. And then you're going to make sure that you are even just by checking your ends. And again, we're just starting out. So this part is just a little longer, but we're going to start rocking and rolling here in a minute. Yep, I'm even. I pulled it out. I can tell that I'm even. Okay. Now, if you say you have a really long left side because you just pulled harder on your left side and you just have a little teeny tiny bit on the right side, go ahead and fix that. So you'll just slide it down and just, like I said, make sure you're pulling at the same time. Okay. And then you can just kind of check it out. And if you're just a little off, that's not going to be like the end of the world if it's a little off like that. But if you're like this, then you might have a problem towards the end. Okay. So make sure you're there. All right. If you have any questions, please let us know. And again, this will be on YouTube tomorrow. So if we're going too fast or too slow, you can catch it tomorrow as well. Okay. All right. We're ready for the next row. So our next row has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It says 5 beads. So we've got the rest of our straw. Remember, I'm going to pinch the straw just a tiny bit right where that crack, that seam is, where we cut. That's another word for where we cut. Just pinch it a tiny bit. Don't make it flat, but just give it a gentle little squeeze. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Okay, so there we are. There's my end. I'm pushing it to the end. Boop. And then I'm going to snip it. It's the same thing that we did last time. I strung it on, and now I'm going to snip it. Now, you don't want to make your beads come off of, you see how you might not be able to see, but I don't want my beads in there so far where the straw doesn't meet the end, because then my bead will pop off. So that's why I use my finger there to just kind of stop it. So if you strung like that, finger, stop, snip. Okay. And when I was working on this yesterday, every once in a while, my straw would go from here to whoop, and it would close on me. And I would say, oh, no, you don't. So I would just grab, like a little pencil or a paintbrush and just open it back up. Okay. That's all you would have to do. All right. So I'm choosing right. If you choose left, you can choose left if you want to. I'm choosing right. Let me get off this other little guy. All right, here we go. Here's the end for the right. And I'm putting it through until he pops out. There he is. See, he popped out. Just pull him through just a little bit. And now I'm grabbing left, the end of left, and I'm putting him in. Do you see how this, I just love this straw hack because it's so much easier. All righty. Make sure your stuff is out of the way, because now it's time to pull our ends. Try to do it at the same time. Oop, okay, now I got to keep going. I'm moving my fingers and I'm going to pull some more. And it gets much easier when you can fit it all on the table like this, when you don't have all this extra string. But in the beginning, it's a little trickier. There. So I just give it a little pull to tighten it up. Okay. And let's check our ends. Make sure I didn't pull too tight on one end and the other. I'm just a little off, and I think that's okay. It's going to be okay. just so long as, or I could go like this, I could lower it and then just pull a little more on the right side. Okay. All right. Hopefully we're rocking and rolling now. Right, we're ready for our next row. So we've done 1, 2, 3 rows. So this next row is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 beads this time. So I'm just going to set them here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And we still have a little bit of our straw left. I wonder when we'll need to use our next one. Could move this out of my, it's kind of in my face here. Oh, no wonder why. Fell down on my face, my little tripod here. I wondered why it was so close. There we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Guys, I just noticed that my nails match the ice cream. That was not planned. 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. There we go. Now you know the drill. Bump them to your finger, boop, and then snip off the end here. There we go. And now we're going to string right and string left. String right. Just a little. And then put the left side in. Keep pushing until it pops out over here. There we go. Make them even, Steven. I bet you could even go like this, guys. You could just grab onto the edge like that and just pull it up. Oh my goodness, look at that. Now there's another hack. That was way easier. Check that out, guys. I love when I figure out a hack or when I learn a new hack. So that one was way easier. Instead of pulling one in, or pulling them together like this, I just grabbed both ends, held this together, and just slid it up. That was the easiest way yet. Okay. So we've done 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. We're on our 5th row. And I think we have one more. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 this time. And I do think we'll be able to fit 8 on this straw. If you run out of straw, go ahead and snip your next row. So we're putting on 8. Fold that guy, just squeeze it just a touch. 1, 2, 3, 4. Squeeze 5, 6, 7, 8. Whoop. Scroll down a little bit. Wow, this one's long one. There we go. 8. And snip it. Okay, are you guys ready for an ice cream joke? Because you know how to do this now, I'm sure. Ooh, let's try our hack one last time though. Okay, so in goes the right side. This is, oh, you know what? That was my left side. Let me just make sure this is straight because look, I had a cross here. You want to make sure that these are flat and they're not crisscrossing. Okay, so make sure you have the right string in the right lane and the left string in the left lane. No one's crossing over. Okay. All right, here we go. Let's try again. I'm glad I caught that, but it wouldn't have been a big deal. We would have just unstrung it real quick. Okay, so in goes the right side, just a little bit, about that much. Then we're putting in the left side, or left at first and right first, whichever you prefer. Keep going till he pops out. There he is. Okay. Here's the hack, guys. I love this. Okay, we're gonna touch the ends. Check it out. Look up if you didn't. Touch the ends. Hold them with one hand. Then you're gonna slide this guy up. I'm just pulling. And I'm gonna get an even string every time. There we go. Okay, here's your joke. Why did the ice cream truck break down? Why did the ice cream truck break down? If you know, you can put it in the Q&A. Let's see. And I'm going to get ready for our next one. Why did the ice cream truck break down? Because, well, let me see if anybody put anything in the chat or Q&A, I'm sorry.
We've got no answers so far.
Okay. Oh, I may have stumped everyone. What do you think? No, I think I did. Well, why did the ice cream truck break down? Because of the rocky road. Do you guys know what rocky road ice cream is? So good. It's chocolate, maybe some nuts in there, vanilla ice cream. I feel like I'm missing something. Marshmallows? Are marshmallows in rocky road ice cream? So good. All right, we're on our last pink row. Last one. And I already counted this, but guess what? I already forgot because I was just cracking myself up with jokes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. It's the same. It's the same one we did last time. All right, but guess what? I'm out of straw. So I need to get another straw. Yours might not have wrappers on it. Mine have wrappers on them. So I am going to unwrap my straw. Throw this guy away because I like to keep my surface area nice and clean. All right. And then do you remember what we did for this straw hack? You put your scissors through the hole of the straw. It's like your scissors needed a drink or something. And then you're just going to cut all the way down. Open, close, all the way down. That sounds so funny. I don't know if you can hear that. Okay, there we go. All the way down. Oh, my lands. Guess what? I forgot again. I think it was 8. Okay. It was the same. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay. And we got a snip. There we go. All right. I think we need to start picking up some speed now too. Okay. So that's what I'm going to start doing. I'm just going to start going just a little bit faster. So I do not want to run out of time. Okay. So this first part, we really broke it down for you. But now you know all the hacks. And you'll just go at your own pace. Oopsies. And whatever you finish today, you will. If you do not, then it's going to be on YouTube tomorrow. All right, here we go for the cone. It's yellowish, doesn't it? It's kind of like a tannish. All right, so we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 for our cone. And I'm just going to work straight from here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, and snip. And if you wanted to, if you just wanted to string all of yours first, you could like put them on the straw first and then assemble them. You could do it that way. All right, grab your ends, make a match, pull them all the way through. Next row, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Put them on your straw. And again, if I'm going too fast, it's okay, because you have your manual, or you can check it out tomorrow. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And snip. And then in the right, in the left. You know, these projects with the pony beads, I never knew how people made designs out of these. And then just one day I thought, I'm going to try. I picked up this kit from Michael's and I thought, I'm going to try that. And I was just in shock by how you can make all these different shapes. It was pretty cool. All right, next one has 4. 1, 2. So this guy kind of got stopped, and that's just because the seam kind of changed on me. And so I just pull them off and run my finger through and it'll go right back. 1, 2, 3, 4. In the right, in the left. Oops, I forgot to snip. This one's a little long. In goes the right. Ooh, I'm so excited. We're almost done with this one. It's so cute. I love how the clear beads look. But I also like the one I made yesterday with chocolate, kind of like a chocolate cone. Okay. Now 2 and 1. See, I told you once we got going, once we got the beginning part, then we could start rocking and rolling. So there's our 2. 1 and 2. You can always look up here if you're still on the strawberry part or the cherry part, the strawberry ice cream, whatever, watermelon, whatever you decide that flavor is. That's okay. Don't worry. If you're still up here and I'm down here on the cone, don't worry one bit. Just glance up here and just kind of count how many, or look in your book. And now we're on 1, the last guy. Oh, I don't need a straw for 1. Silly me.
One of our friends pointed out that you skipped a row. So it should be 3, 2, 1.
Ooh, thank you. Oh, my lands. Thank you so much. I did not notice that. Okay, let me put that on the straw here. I appreciate that. 3. There we go. See how easy that is? Like if you skip a row on accident, see how easy it is to go back. Oops, go back. We smashed that guy. Easy to undo it. My last class, if any of you were in my last class, it was my very first class, and I had a big boo-boo. All of my beads went everywhere. And you know what? Several people contacted me and they said, you know what? I am glad that happened, because the same thing happened to us and we almost had tears. And then we saw how easy it is just to bounce back from a mistake. So mistakes are going to happen along the way and we just learn from them. Okay, there we go. Isn't that so cute, you guys? Okay, I'm going to show you how to tie it off, okay? So even if you're not done already, I'm going to show you how I'm going to tie this off. I'm going to take the tape off and bring it closer. And I'm going to bring this closer so you can see. Okay, so some people like to tie it off here down at the bottom, just for extra reinforcement. I like to tie it on the sides. Okay, so you're going to bring in the end here through this part. And it looks really loose right now, but we're going to tighten it up just like this. Okay, so you're going to, I like to just kind of come in from the back here. Just like that. Okay, pull this guy so it's closer. And then I'm going to pull him and I'm going to make him go through that hoop right here. Okay. It's really like tying your shoe. That very first time, the very first time that you're tying your shoe, not first time, but you know, when you make the cross part, that's what you're doing here. So you're just making it tight, tight, tight. And then we do it a second time. So go through again, come in, because this is slippery string. So here's my circle, pull it through here. You're just going to do that 2 times. Kind of hold these guys close so you can tighten it up. There we go. Okay. And now we do it on this other side. So you go in here. You can go from the front or the back, either way. Okay. In you go. And then make it come through this loop here. So pull it, make it go through here. And you have to do it twice, otherwise it will unravel. So a second time. We might not get through our cupcake. Wasn't quite sure with this how long it would take if we would be able to get through both of them, but we'll definitely get it started. And then push, push, push. Just make sure you're pushing that knot to the end there. Pull it real tight. Okay, there we go. So now we're going to trim the ends. And I'm just going to leave some end and go back later and trim even more, but I'm going to leave it loose, or I'm sorry, not loose, but longer. So now I'm going to use my glue. Oh, my tripod is falling down. I'm not sure why it's doing that today. Okay, so I'm just going to put a little dab of glue on each end here. So I kind of like to get started a little bit. There we go. And then I'm going to put a little dab on this side. A little dab will do ya. Whoops. Well, it kind of comes out. There we go. And now I'm not going to touch it. I'm going to let it dry here for a little bit. And then once it dries, then I can snip off those edges there. Okay. And then we can get started on our second one. We'll just get it started, but then you'll be able to finish later. Okay. And if you want to put the keychain on later, you can. Now this one's going to go a little faster. You could still be working on your ice cream cone, and that's okay. And then remember, I'm working from this like confetti one. I'm going to put my pony bead on here. And I'm using my purple string. And for this one, how about we not use the straw, just because if you don't have a straw, you can kind of see how it works and how it looks different.
Hey, Elizabeth.
Yes.
We actually have a couple people asking if you can show how to tie off the end again.
Sure. Let's see here. Let's see. How about I just use part of this right here, since I don't have, if we're just going to pretend, let's see. So what you'll do, you'll pretend like these are the ends here and it's already strung through. So what you do is you just put it through that upper string right there. Okay. Put it through there. And then you'll see like a little circle, and it's just like tying your shoe where you're just crossing it and pulling it through. And you're just bringing it up real tight to the end, tight, tight, tight. And you're kind of pushing these beads back together and you're tightening. And then you do it one other time. I'm not going to do it super tight on here so I can actually use this for the pattern. So then you go back through again, through the back if you want, or the front, either way, you're just going to go through. I'm making it loose on purpose, guys. So you just put it through in there. See, it makes this little loop. Do you see that? That's the loop I was talking about. And you're just, see, it's just like an O, and you're just putting it through that and bringing it up tight, 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 tight. Okay, really tight, even tighter than that. All right. Okay. That helps. So this one, we're just going to go 2, 1. We're definitely not going to have time for this one. I wasn't sure to say 1 or 2. And if you want to have your adult follow me on La Cozy Casita, I can finish this on there so that you can see it later. Okay. Because I think we have to stop after the hour. Right, Chanel? Okay, 5. So I just go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So you can see how they don't lie flat when you're not using the straw. Like there's just a little more, it's just a little more loosey-goosey, but it still works just fine. See, and then you have to go through and string each of these, or you could hold them in a row like soldiers if you wanted, and string them through that way. That's essentially what that straw is doing, is just keeping them all together.
How much string do they need for the cupcake?
Okay, for the cupcake, it is 3.8 feet. Thank you. Good question. Okay, so see how that looks, guys? See how it's a little different? Not as straight. Okay, so now we're going sprinkles. So we've got white, and then we've got an orange, white, orange, white, green. And you can make it any way you want. If you want you want it to be blue first, you can make it be blue first. See, mine's going to go on backwards, and that's totally fine. So white, orange, white, green, and white, blue. And white again. And then put it through this way. So if you do not have this kit at home and you would like to take a picture of this guy just so you can finish later, that might be a good idea, since we're running out of time. Let me move him down a little bit. I loosened him up just a bit when I was retying that, but you can get an idea. Then I have a row of all whites. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So I'm going to do this row and then we are going to have to stop. But like I said, take a pick. So you've got the pattern because I have taught you now how to do, I've taught you the basics. You know how to put your keychain on, you know how to put your starter bead on, and you know how to put your hook on. So now it really doesn't matter what kind of pattern you do because you've already learned a new method. So the cool thing is you can do many patterns now because you have learned the basics. And then I taught you how to tie. And then glue it off at the end. I just love these guys. They are so fun. And get this one last one there. Okay, so I want to see what you came up with. Okay, there we go. So I'm going to stop here. And I want to see what you came up with. I'm going to show you again how you can contact me so I can see. And like I said, I'll finish this and then I'm going to upload it for you. Okay, but you're going to be able to see, this is my handle on Instagram, have your adult, they have it show, or have your adult look it up and then you'll be able to see that. La Cozy Casita. But on YouTube tomorrow, you're going to see this class and you'll have the finished product of the ice cream cone. Follow Learn with Michaels. And then hashtag Make It with Michaels and hashtag Kids Classes so we can see what you did. Okay, and then if you wouldn't mind coming up to the other camera for me. All right, guys. Well, you did it. Hopefully you have finished. And if you haven't, don't worry. You do not have to rush yourself. You've got all of the hard stuff. You figured it out. This is a trickier class for our new beginners. So I'm super proud of you for trying something new. Like I said, it was new for me too when I first started this project. So, you know, you're never too young and you're never too old to learn something new. And I'm really, really, really proud of you. Hopefully you can join me for my next class. I almost forgot to mention that. It is on August 8th, and we are going to be making these fun pencil toppers. Look at how fun these are. Aren't those so silly and goofy? I just love them. And this is wild, you guys. We are going to be making pencil pouches out of bags, sandwich bags, and duct tape. So look at all these cool pencil pouches I made. So hopefully you can join me in August and check this one out. I only did part of it so you could see. Guess what this one is? This is last year's pencil pouch. So you can recycle last year's pencil pouch and have a brand new pouch to take to school this year, or just put your crafts in if you want. Look at this one. Isn't this a wild, crazy one? This one I made in my school colors. I thought that was fun. So that's going to be August 8th. Back to school. And then after that, on the 17th, we are going to be making more bracelets. This one's kind of looks like a pencil, doesn't it? Like the eraser and the pencil. And then this one has my daughter's name, Lena, and it's in our school colors. We're the Stingers. So you can you'll have your own like new bling to take to the first day of school. Won't that be fun? So I hope you enjoyed this class. You guys did a great job. I apologize we didn't get all the way through, but we had a lot of stuff to learn, didn't we? So thank you guys, and I hope to see you again. Bye.